Wow, welcome Sunday morning on Democracy Sunday. So glad to have you here. It's so great to see so many regulars waiting for us. How cool is that? You guys get here ahead of us. I don't know if you know, we just hang out. We're just hanging out. We're not even talking to start the show. We're just waiting for you to show up. So, man, it's great to be here live with you again. I start every week saying what a crazy week it's been. It's been a fucking crazy week. You know that. We're so glad to have a chance to talk about it. We got an incredible show. I'm so excited to have old friends join us again and others, and I think you're going to enjoy it. But look, there's a lot we have to talk about this week. Obviously, it was kind of a yet another shocking week in America, but also let's add some overseas shock to it too as well. But in the meantime, let's start with one of the most bizarre things I've ever seen, which is just came out last night of Trump posted this incredibly just shitty authoritarian post on Truth Social. He actually no, we're talking about the one where he said, "Hey, if I break the law." What was it? If he who saves his country does not violate any law, there we go. And this, he posted this in Trump posted this on Truth Social and then on X. This was Saturday, actually. Just a single sentence. What's fascinating, by late afternoon, Trump had actually pinned this statement to the top of his Truth Social feed. And of course, Elon Musk retweeted this post with all American flags, all American. It's a shocking thing. And of course, a lot of their news are reporting it as Democrats react with shock. It's like, no, everybody should react with freaking shock about this. This is an incredibly authoritarian statement. It's credited originally to Napoleon right before he passed law to make him emperor. Okay, to dictator, and that's gone through history. The quote is a variation of that, but taken to face value, Trump's statement on Saturday went much further. I mean, it suggests that even what he's doing is unambiguously breaks, like saying, "I'm breaking the law," but it's not valid. If you remember, one of the big things they've been pushing is the idea of a unitary executive who can actually just break the laws. And we all know Supreme Court sort of gave him that backing, right? And essentially, if he's doing something in the realm of his authority and as president, it's not illegal. So now we've got a president who kind of thinks he is the emperor and that what he can do is break the law. Look, this goes back a lot. And a lot of us who study history, and we actually have a guy that did, coming on, those of us who studied history, this is a little cold. I'm one of my earliest memories, and fuck, it's gonna date me, guys. I'm sorry, but one of my earliest memories is the damn Watergate hearings screwing up my Saturday morning cartoons, and and because they were putting them live. This is the kind of things you deal with as a child, because there's, believe it or not, kids, there used to be a time where you could only watch the cartoons on like 5 channels, and they were broadcasting the Watergate hearings. But Richard Nixon, when he resigned to avoid being impeached during the Watergate scandal, he talked in an interview afterwards about wiretapping, all the things he did, and he actually talked about examples of history. But he literally said, when the president does it, that means it's not illegal. And so this is the great heroes that Trump is actually alluding to here when he's essentially saying, I can do what I want. And that should terrify every American. And then the actions that have followed will show you that. And that's the next story. This week, we actually don't know the exact number, but upwards of 100,000 or more federal employees were unceremoniously fired with emails late in the afternoon. The Trump administration has fired, we really actually don't know, but they range from wildfire prevention folks to medical researchers. And it's a mass firing on this scale has never been done in the federal government, and it's vastly going to reshape how the federal government works. And of course, they're not answering questions. A lot of this came from Doge and OPM. You can see IRS is talking about this. By the way, IRS is talking about laying off people now. Agencies have been given until 8 p.m. on Tuesday to fire probationary workers, according to source from the process, though they are allowed to make case-by-case exemptions. There are about 200,000 probationary workers in the federal government. And this is what I want. I actually posted about this in social media, and some MAGA person responded, "Oh, you understand what probationary means, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, it means they're fucking new hires." And look, I'll talk about, we'll jump down in the story to one about VA. VA fired 1,000 people, mostly from the Office of Information Technology, Procurement, and the Veterans Benefit Administration. Now, why VBA? Why does that matter? Well, that's where they process the payments. The PACT Act was passed 2 years ago. The PACT Act was the largest expansion of veterans' health care since Vietnam. Over 1.1 million veterans who had never previously filed for benefits from the VA filed under the PACT Act because of its exemptions and its benefits, including counting over exposure to burn pits. 1.1 million people, new people, joined the VA in record time. The VA frantically hired thousands of new employees to try and keep up. And by the way, to their credit, it worked. I know personally, when I filed for my own PACT Act filing, it was processed in record time. I actually got a personal call from a VA employee to walk me through how I'd filled some of the paperwork out wrong. That's who they fired. That's who they fired. So a probationary worker is not somebody who's like not good at their job, like some of the MAGA wants you to believe. They're new. And when you've got a civil service that's an average age is over 40, we desperately need new people to join the civil service. That's what they're firing. They're firing the entire next generation of actual public servants. And this comes at the same time that 75,000 workers allegedly accepted the Doge fork in the road bullshit for early resignation. And we're hearing from our spies in the government that many people who put in for that early resignation where they get paid through September actually got notices after Thursday saying, hey, we're denying your early resignation request and you're just fired now. So they raised their hand up saying, I want to leave. And because of that, these clever fuckers went ahead and just terminated them. You understand what they're doing? The whole thing was a bait and switch. Why is this familiar? It's the same thing Elon did at Twitter. Okay. They even use the same email subject line, fork in the road. And we've been telling as loud as we can, don't fall for it. He screwed over the Twitter workers and now he's screwing over federal workers. But federal workers have a lot more going on than somebody hit Twitter, perhaps, right? They have a lot more that matters. When you talk about employees inside the IRS, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, USDA, they've all been fired or had colleagues that got termination notices. This is a wild one. All 18 career communication staffers at the Office of Personnel Management, OPM, the ones driving this whole thing, where Russ Vought, the guy who runs it, said last year he wants to terrorize federal employees. All 18 of their communicators were fired, according to the American Federation of Government Employees. That's just like Elon did at Twitter. So you can imagine where reporters ask about these personnel firings, they're getting an email back with the poop emoji like he did at Twitter, I imagine, right? These should worry you because the government's job is to tell us what's going on. They have a duty in law to inform us of their actions. If they're firing the people who tell us those things, you can be assured we're going to see a lot less transparency in government because of it. These are permanent deletions. Inside the Department of Energy, if you saw that one, that was a fun one. They accidentally, apparently, fired the people who do nuclear security, the people who actually secure our nuclear materials and even the bombs. They didn't know they did that, and they fired a bunch of them. And now, apparently, stories are out. They're trying to rehire them and they don't know how to reach them because they cut off their emails immediately and didn't have time. They literally didn't out-process these people, which you're supposed to do in any job. They just terminated them and cut off their email without finding out what their backup email was. You know how when you leave a job, they can send paperwork to you. So now they don't even know how to get hold of the people they fired who guard our nuclear materials because they fired them so wrong and so illegally, they can't get hold of them, if you can believe that. That's the insanity of what we're dealing with right now. So we're really troubling. And I talked about VA ready. CNS also reports there was 3,400 dismissals at the U.S. Forest Service. Remember how Trump said we need to take better care of the forest? We got to rake them. Well, the people that would rake the forest all got fired. If you're seeing reports of fire prevention specialists, safety people, I saw a post from a woman who's a paramedic that did 50 rescues in her short career already. She was fired because she was probationary. Because one of the twists of the story is if you change departments within the federal government, say you started your job at DOD and you move to a new section of the government, for example, VA, you go back in a new probationary period. So they're actually also firing people who have been with the government and have great expertise, and they're being fired as well. Because again, they're just willy-nilly spamming this out and firing everybody that says probationary next to them. The Energy Department lost 2,000 people. They're also saying 5,200 workers inside the Department of Health and Human Services are targeted for firings. The people that kind of protected us with what they could during the last pandemic. On and on. Now it's being challenged in court. Matter of fact, the unions have stepped up. They're going forward, taking cases, and they're having some success. But the president of the American Federation of Government Employees is just, he says in a quote, this administration has abused the probationary period to conduct a politically driven mass firing spree, targeting employees not because of performance, but because they were hired before Trump took office. So we always talk about the weaponization of the government, the politicization of the government. This is what it looks like, you guys. This is what's happening. And I know it doesn't seem like a big deal to a lot of you. Look, I'm the last person to defend how efficient the government can be. But I also know a lot of friends who have worked there who literally take their jobs as seriously as they did in the military. Many, many veterans, over 1/3 of the workforce at the VA are veterans. Same at DOD. These are people who've dedicated their lives to service and continue to dedicate their lives to service, and they're being treated like cast-offs. And that should worry every American, and it should worry everyone. Which takes us to the international discussion we were having just a moment ago. I don't know where to start with this. I was going to run clip. I think we have a clip of. Did you have the clip, JJ, of our friend Hegseth talking about Ukraine?
We want, like you, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine. But we must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement. Instead, any security guarantee must be backed by capable European and non-European troops.
Yeah, so we open our negotiating by surrendering. I mean, it's literally, and that was the reaction to that speech. So one thing Putin wanted all along, no Ukraine in the NATO. One thing Putin wanted all along, at least keep the stuff he stole illegally in 2014. The brand new Secretary of Defense just gave it to him. It's like playing poker by turning over all your cards immediately and saying, all right, what you got? Okay, they got nothing. And the shock was immediate. It went on from there, the Munich Security Conference. Hegseth tried to roll that back a little bit, as much as he could, between gulps of water. We won't talk about that. I've never seen somebody drink so much water during a press conference, but nonetheless, he did. At least he knows how to drink compared to Rubio. Having said that, he was trying to roll it back quite a bit. And of course, JD Vance shows up, makes it even worse with his statements, where he spent an entire speech at the Munich Security Conference attacking Europeans, but not Russia or China or the actual people who are trying to undermine Europe. Instead, he attacked our peers for not doing enough, or for things like worrying about Russian disinformation, or, believe it or not, supporting women in England who want to get abortions. These are the worries of our government overseas. This is just 3.5 weeks, 4 weeks in our administration. Our entire relationship with Europe has been flipped on its side. So the reaction from Europe is the one you see here on screen right now. Looks like we're on our own. Finland's president on Sunday urged rearming of Ukraine, putting maximum pressure on Russia through sanctions and asset freezes in the run-up to any possible negotiations, as Trump is talking about directly negotiating with Moscow in Riyadh. They literally talk about going to meet Putin's people with MBS's people, with no one from Ukraine or Europe at the table. Failed General Kellogg has literally said that Europe isn't invited to the security of Europe. Alexander Stubb and our European leaders today, this is just today, at the final day of the Munich Security Conference, sought to firm up how the European Union is going to move from talk to action and stay relevant, even as the United States apparently pulls out of Europe. He laid out 3 phases for them to do that: a pre-negotiation, a ceasefire, and a long-term peace negotiation for Europe. And that means getting stronger. He wants them to rush arms and insert weapons to Ukraine so that Ukraine can defend themselves strongly and come from a position of strength. If you've served for a day in the military, this may sound familiar. If you've studied history, I'm sure our guest Kevin has studied history. Korea, we fought hard right up to negotiations to make sure we were operating from a position of strength. But it goes on. France is stepping up. They want a working meeting Monday in Paris. They're actually meeting as early as Monday in Paris with European partners to talk about how they can support Ukraine. Prime Minister of Britain, Keir Starmer, Frederiksen from Denmark, Donald Tusk of Poland, all of them has already said they're going to attend this only European meeting on Monday, all because of just 5 days of Trump diplomacy. All in all, it's a really shocking turn, from 3 years of U.S. partnership with Europe, which has been very successful. I mean, let's face it. It was supposed to be a 3-day war for Putin in Ukraine. And now we're in our 3rd year because Ukraine's fought back, because Europe has come together. We've added countries to NATO. And in all that time, Biden was in the middle of it quietly, probably too quietly, which is why we're here. Nonetheless, that's turned around now. I mean, the ultimate punchline is in that same speech at Munich that Hegseth gave. He actually chastised our partners for not spending enough in defense, saying that 3% was not enough, 4% was not. They should be spending 5% of their GDP on the defense. Do you know the U.S. spends 3.5%? And it came out this week that Doge wants to cut that by 8%. Okay, so the hypocrisy is nothing new with the Republicans, and certainly nothing new with Pete Hegseth, who quit drinking as soon as he became SecDef. And so there's a historic moment we face. So a lot going on, a lot to talk about, and that leads us to history, to our guest, our guest this week. I've got a great guest, Kevin Kruse. You know him. I'm sure you know Kevin. If you don't, you need to get online and meet Kevin. He studies political, social, and urban suburban history of the 20th century America at a fine school I've heard of. I think Princeton, I believe it is. A pretty good school. Not bad. But he's particularly interested in segregation, the civil rights movement, the rise of religious nationalism, and especially the make of modern conservative. He writes on Substack at Campaign Trails, which you should subscribe to. Kevin, welcome to the show, man. I'm glad to have you. Come on in. See that? Aren't we cool now, Kevin?
That was very cool. Wow.
Isn't it cool? I know, man.
It was awesome.
I love having guests. I love having guests in the original podcast join me because you see how cool we are. So welcome.
You got a glow up. It's awesome.
I'm telling you, man. You hire the right people. JJ's back there. Katie's back there making me look good.
I know it's not you because I saw it.
No. And everybody follows the show knows that. You get JJ caffeinated, you get Katie, quietly there, and everything goes great. No caffeine for JJ, everything goes horribly awry. But that's my point. Anyway, here we are. He's got the coffee. So welcome to the show. I was prepping for the show, and the last time you and I talked was February of last year, and it was when this came. Do you have that clip, JJ? We loaded this clip right at the last second. Can you show this clip real quick? Oh, I can't. So this is Jack Posobiec.
All right, welcome. I just wanted to say, welcome to the end of democracy. We're here to overthrow it completely. We didn't get all the way there on January 6th, but we will endeavor to get rid of it and replace it with this right here. We'll replace it with this right here.
Amen.
So, Kevin. Yeah. So that was a year ago at CPAC. Yep. You got Steve Bannon there laughing in the background with his evil laugh. What a time to be a historian, Kevin. What do you think?
I don't like it.
Yeah. He just went to Europe.
I would like to live in a calm, uninteresting period where I can study crazy things that happened in the past. Experiencing real time is not really up my
Current affairs wasn't supposed to be your specialty, but,
No.
And this is as Posobiec just went to Europe with the Treasury Secretary to Ukraine as a VIP guest of the current government. It's just insane, isn't it?
Well, when you remember that Posobiec's actual credentials in the military were doing urinalysis, it makes sense that Hegseth would want to have somebody who carry clean urine for him, right? So I timed that beautifully. Oh, I
should have been drinking. Well done. Yeah, that does actually make more sense than I thought it. That actually makes a lot of sense.
That was a theory floated on Blue Sky. So if you're not on Blue Sky, that's the kind of commentary you're missing.
Follow him on Blue Sky, Kevin Kruse on Blue Sky. I did open the show with that bizarre post from Trump. He who saves the country does not violate the law. It's attributed to Napoleon. Have you looked at that? I mean, I also heard today as we were getting ready for the show that the guy, the neo-Nazi that killed 77 people in Norway, quoted that in his manifesto.
Yeah.
Didn't he?
Yeah, and so there are two levels at which this is just an insane quote. I mean, you noted that. When Nixon said in the Frost-Nixon interviews in 1977,
yep,
when a president does it, that means it's not illegal. The country was horrified. That was a statement that confirmed that he should have been driven from power. He didn't deserve the presidency. He did not understand our system at all. And yet, for a certain segment of the far right, that became kind of a lodestar of their politics, right? And they really do believe it. And so this thing that was a minor note of disgrace way back then has become a moderate today. And it's incredibly dangerous for a head of state to say that. And I understand why he does. The Roberts Court has been, I think, I will argue with other historians about the worst Supreme Court ever. Yeah. I think John Roberts has surpassed Roger Taney, who did Dred Scott and led us up to the Civil War. Because all Taney did was blow up one kind of main pillar of America. Roberts has presided over a countless array, whether it be Heller or Citizens United or Shelby County. He is the worst ever, and he owns this because he basically told the president he could do whatever he wants, and it's not illegal. And now Trump is out there doing whatever he wants. But the Breivik-Anders thing, Anders-Breivik thing, is another line here, which I think is important. This message isn't just about Trump, because it doesn't say when a president goes above the law and saves the country, that's fine.
Yes.
He who saves his country is above the law, right? And that's a reason why Breivik pointed to that is this gives any nutcase, any psychopath free license to commit violence, mass murder in the name of, quote, saving the country. And that's the real dangerous part we're going to see here. Trump, as bad as he is, Musk, as bad as he is, they're one level. There's an army of unhinged people out there who are ready and willing to act on this green light. And that's what terrifies me. One of
the many things, right? And Kash Patel, I mean, January 6th guys all being pardoned. Now they owe Trump. I mean, there's a lot of really layers to this. And as somebody who's been targeted on a regular basis, I think we got doxxed, we know of 3 times last year because, why not? It is chilling. It is chilling to free speech. It's chilling to people's actual lives and security. And I think it's working for a lot of people. It's scary. And that goes on to the many illegal things that are happening. You wrote a great piece this week on Campaign Trails about this Thursday night massacre.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge we have, and this is, of course, the goal is to flood us with, Bannon was just in that clip, flood the zone with bullshit. But having said, this is a significant one. The Department of Justice has truly flipped on its back of what they do, which is become Trump's attorneys. And so when they tried to dismiss this Eric Adams case, it got ugly fast, didn't it?
Yeah, it was amazing. And the immediate comparison that people made, we keep coming back to Nixon, is because that's the last time things were nearly this bad, but this is much worse. So we all called it the Thursday afternoon massacre, which is, if you don't know your history, is a callback to the Saturday night.
It's not a gate. I mean, there's no gate for that one, but go ahead. We'll find it.
And we were so close to a repeat of the Valentine's Day massacre, which would have been perfect.
Oh, that would have been better.
The timing was wrong. But anyway, the Saturday night massacre was when, Nixon basically told his Attorney General, Elliot Richardson, to fire the special prosecutor looking into Watergate. And Richardson, a man of deep integrity, who had made the independence of that special prosecutor a condition of his own hiring as Attorney General, said no, and he resigned. William Ruckelshaus, number 2, resigned. And then Robert Bork stepped in to fill the void and did the president's bidding. This one is much worse, I think. I mean, we don't have the resignation of the Attorney General, and that makes it a big issue. But we saw senior officials in the Department of Justice all step down, starting with Danielle Sassoon, who is not some bleeding heart liberal. This is a former Scalia clerk, a Heritage, a Federalist Society member, Trump's own appointee to head up the Southern District of New York. We saw the acting head of the Criminal Division, the acting head of the Public Integrity Commission. A lot of people high up, I think about half dozen so far, have fallen on their swords because they refuse to do the bidding of Bond villain and Abe Vigoda lookalike.
I mean,
Emil Bove III.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. And like you said, there's a tendency here to say, well, they want us to get distracted. They're flooding the zone. There's too much to pay attention to. This is something you got to pay attention to. Okay. This would easily have led to several officials' immediate resignation and perhaps an impeachment proceeding into the president. And we're just kind of shrugging it off. It was Thursday.
Well, that's the thing, and you and I are talking the pre-record, and I'm loath to be, and I like the leaders, and I'll try not to name someone, but a friend of mine who's an operative sent me a clip of one of the leaders of the Democratic Party this morning, and I think he wanted me to boost it for him. And this gentleman was on TV talking about billionaire tax cuts. Okay, and I'm like, okay, that was your, they literally just had a huge undermining of the rule of law literally 3 days ago. And we're back to talking about a billionaire tax cuts. It feels like the message that it is, I hate to say, but in a lot of ways, it seems like the leadership is struggling, aren't they, from your perspective? And you've got a comparison of history to see how do they organize against this. Are you seeing any kind of organization that at all, frankly, let's be honest?
Well, I mean, look, in fairness, when Watergate happened, Democrats had both houses of Congress, and they had some conservative members, but they had technical control. There's a lot they can do. In the minority, there's not as much they can do. That said, there's a lot more they could do, right? And there's some good people in both houses. This isn't all Democrats are bad, but I think the leadership really in both houses is missing a lot of opportunities, right? So in the Senate, there's a lot of ways in which you can gum up the works. You can deny unanimous consent. You can force quorum calls. You can drag this out, right? You're not going to stop everything, but you can slow it down, right? You can not take a 3-day weekend on a trip to Germany, wherever they went to go drink beer. You can force them to stay there, make it as slow and as painful as possible. Mitch McConnell, for all the evil in which he embodied, was a very shrewd and smart man who knew how to use the tools of the Senate minority. Same with the House, right? There's not a lot they can do right now, but they've got a big chance coming up with the budget and with the debt ceiling. And I've always opposed the people who play games with the debt ceiling, but that's where we're at now. And as Mitch McConnell said, the debt ceiling was a hostage worth ransoming. They got spending cuts out of Obama on that, right? The entire constitutional order is hanging by a thread here. That's a pretty good time to use the power of the purse to stop this and to try to demand some kind of accountability. So there's a lot more they can do, right? Yeah.
And the show stuff. I really enjoyed Robert Garcia from California this week. In the committee, he said, Marjorie Taylor Greene showed dick pics, so I'm going to show a dick pic. He put a pic of Elon Musk up. I'm not going to run the clip; it runs pretty long. But then he went into a discussion of what Elon Musk is doing. And what I found interesting about that in the context of our conversation, especially your writing that you do on campaign trails, is he did go on CNN afterwards. And Brianna Keeler, who I love, said, do you think it was appropriate for you to show a picture of Elon Musk and call him a dick? He said, yes, because, and essentially what he said in 2 minutes was, here I am on your show talking about it, and you know what I mean? And then he went on like that. The point is, I have to get your attention. I have to get the American people's attention. And then we could talk about what they're doing, because what Elon and Doge and these guys are doing is absolutely unprecedented and clearly illegal, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And people treating this as if it's somehow normal that, President Trump was elected, therefore he can do whatever he wants with executive orders, with shutting down agencies that were established through Congress that are upheld by law, is insane. And what we need here from Democratic leaders, even if they can't stop this, to get out there and shout nonstop that this is insane, right? The American public, I don't think a lot of people have clued into this. They're about to when basic government services stop functioning, when the checks stop rolling in. I think people are going to find this out in really brutal fashion. But right now, Republicans are empowering this, absolutely. But Democrats can put a stake in the ground and say, this is wrong. This needs to stop. We're going to do everything we can to expose and to publicize this. But that starts with simply screaming at the top of your head as often as you can.
Yeah. And even Steve Schmidt wrote today, and Steve and I go way back. We've had our times and our good and bad. But Steve wrote today, it's not enough for Democrats just to stand up there and say, fuck Trump. Right. I mean, that's great. But I did like the approach of Garcia, which is, okay, this guy's a dick, but here's why he's doing it. I mean, we do. And I do feel like and you've seen it in history, I'm sure. It really, I go back to Lincoln a lot, that everybody had a job, right? You know what I mean? And in World War II, everybody had a job. FDR wasn't running the war. Marshall was. In those ways, and I think I see the same thing. They need to divide up, like, hey, here, you're going to focus on the economy part. And I think Elizabeth Warren does a good job. That was CFPB. But the CFPB stuff is a great example of just how outrageous it was. And it does feel like, I saw an article today that says, I think Politico was talking about how the Democrats are losing the online fight. And you talked about Blue Sky. We're both on Blue Sky. I think you and I keep competing for ranks. People send me the rankings like, oh, Kruse. But joking aside, we are not affected because Trump, President Musk is using his owned platform to kind of own this conversation in a lot of ways, isn't he? And that communications part is going to hurt us, isn't it?
I think it absolutely is. And again, to go back to a point you made earlier, billionaires getting tax cut. Yeah, I agree. It's bad. I don't think it's going to be the thing that lights, a real pushback against this, because Democrats have been talking about this for forever. And as I've mentioned to you before, I always think back to the 2000 campaign when Al Gore warned that it was like 42% of Bush's tax cuts were going to go to the top 1%. Well, the problem was about 20% of Americans thought they were the top 1%. Another 20% thought that they would one day be the top 1%. Right. So he's talking about a very thin slice. The American public thinks that he's talking about them, right? So instead of talking about these hypotheticals about, this is unfair or whatever, really bring it down to individual stories, right? We've got people involved in protecting the forest from getting on fire who have been fired. We've got scientists who are working to solve major diseases, to cure cancer, or we're just providing regular care. We've got patients who've been denied, who are in clinical trials, right? And the NIH funding shut down, right? I think a lot of us have seen abstractly cuts to universities, right? Cuts to this institution over here. No, this impacts regular, ordinary Americans in brutal ways. And we're all about to find out in our own lives, if you haven't already, it's coming for you. And what Democrats need to do is stop talking at kind of this 30,000 feet level in the atmosphere and really get down to real stories with real people who are relatable to other ordinary voters out there.
That's it. It's Ellen Smith. I've been sharing a Facebook post that a friend sent me. I blurred out the woman's name, but she was a perfect example. Left DOD, went to VA, military spouse, pregnant, was technically a probationary worker on the Veterans Crisis Hotline, which has saved thousands of lives for stopping suicide, has been held up. They've done documentaries about it, of how successful the Veterans Crisis Line. They just fired her without any recourse. It is, those are real people, and there'll be real second and third order effects. Well, we could talk all day. I appreciate your time on a Sunday morning, sir. Your day off from work, and where can people find all of your work and connect with you? Because I really think they should.
Blue Sky. I'm currently on Substack. I'm trying to move it to Ghost, but Campaign Trails, you can find me there wherever it's going to be housed. I'm in print form. There's these things called books. That's where I do most of my work. But you got to go to the library,
and they're good. I got to get them. Kevin, thanks for your time. I always love talking to you. I'm going to bring it back again soon. Awesome. Have a great Sunday, bro. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care now.
Cheers. Bye-bye. I love hanging out with Kevin. And the thing is, we do need to understand the historic perspective where we sit in this moment. And it is key. But at the same time, we got to think about where we are and enjoy life for a minute. And as always, we've bring together a great panel that kind of relates to all of this. So I really have a wonderful panel. Let's not waste any time. Let's get on. Let's bring on this week's panel. I've got great guests, Mark Valley and Aaron Parnas. Let's get the panel going. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. We're trying to get Aaron off because Mark, so good to see you, my friend. Right and early in LA, I believe, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love my LA guests. I tell the story often. If those who watch the show, this is our 10th, by the way, 10th show. We made the 10th of the Sunday show. Chris Titus and his wife Rachel are supposed to join us. And Rachel she called me, a foul name for the essentially terrorist for having a show at 8 a.m. in California. And I really appreciate it. So that's weird. So, guys, thanks so much for joining us. I'll give you an introduction. Mark graduated from West Point with me in 1977, was commissioned engineers, served in Desert Storm, transitioned to acting, gained international fame for your recurring character, Jack Devereaux, of course, on Days of
Oh, yeah.
Didn't think we were going to forget that, did you?
Good call. Good call.
I love it. Did my mic get lost? Hi. Okay, I'm going to bring it back. That's weird. Okay, let me get that fixed real quick. Talk amongst yourself. Aaron, introduce yourself.
Hey guys, your mic is actually fixed. It's much better now.
There we go. Thank God.
We're all good.
It's probably my phone grabbing it. I'm so glad it's working again. So good to see you. Anyways, Mark, glad to see you. I mentioned Mark and I graduated from West Point together. He's been in acting for 25 years in beloved roles, TV shows, Boston Legal, Human Target, and more. And I'm so glad to have you. We'll talk about that. Aaron, of course, if you don't know Aaron Parnas, I don't know where you've been hiding. Aaron is a lawyer by trade, which we won't hold against him. However, he's also what we call a news influencer, which we're going to talk about, Aaron. And if you're not following him on TikTok, he has been called the go-to news source on TikTok. So, guys, welcome to Democracy Sunday. It's glad to have you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
Hey, Mark, I was prepping the show. And it's been a crazy couple of weeks, but I wanted to research, your background, of course, what we do. And I was looking at you. You've had some incredible roles, but I think one of the most unrecognized roles was Cyclops in Shrek 3, Shrek the Third. What was it like getting a role as an evil henchman who was also a very good dad?
Yeah, remember the there was an act. I remember they called me up for the audition. They said we need somebody to do a Michael Chiklis voice, and so I said all right. So I did the audition for it. I guess it was Cyclops, right? And I thought, that's gone, and then. I think about 4 months went by. My agent calls me back and said, listen, we need to clear some dates. We need to see if you're available for this. It's between you and one other guy. I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, I'm free. I can do it. And I was like, who's the other guy? Michael Chiklis.
I did not know that. Wow, you beat him.
So I did a pretty good Michael Chiklis impersonation at the time. Yeah.
Small world. I'm sure he holds it against you. I don't know
Yeah.
if I want him. I would not want him mad at me, though. I mean, that's probably a problem, isn't it?
No, not the commish. Yeah.
Oh God, Aaron, you've been on fire since the election. I wanted to bring up with you something interesting. I don't. We haven't had a chance to talk. So, Aaron and I, full disclosure, we've worked together for 3 or 4 years now. I think, right, brother? I mean, we've done a couple of campaigns and hung out at the DNC. And we're always messaging each other. Hey, did you see this crazy shit? But what's interesting to me, and I don't know if you saw it, but Pew came out with the study right after the election that said like a fifth of Americans actually get their news now from news influencers. And I remember reading that study and saying, oh, that's fucking Aaron. I mean, what do you think of that? I mean, especially somebody who's in the center of all that. I mean, it's a weird time, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an indictment of where the mainstream media has really come, right? And we're really where it is right now. I think a lot of Americans, whether young or old, they're just kind of tired of the legacy media. I mean, for 2 years, mainstream media has been telling us that Donald Trump is this big threat to our democracy. And then days later, you have Mika and Joe at Mar-a-Lago right after he won the election. And it's like, well, I thought we trusted you. We trusted you when you told us that Trump was this big threat. So a lot of people have been disenchanted with the mainstream media, and they just want to find alternative sources. And we're in a time now, Fred, where it's like, at least people my age, I'm 25, we spend an hour every night and every morning scrolling on TikTok. We don't spend an hour every night and every morning watching Morning Joe or CNN or whatever. So a lot of people are just kind of getting their news from social media, and it's fascinating, but it's a shift that I don't think it's going to ever kind of revert back. So it's been great.
Yeah, and I'm not a kid either. I'm the same way. I'm 59. Mark and I are the same age. We graduated the same time from college. Mark, you transitioned into the podcast world yourself now, talking about things, after your acting career, and it is a difference. Even I would argue with you, my friend Aaron, that even people my age are doing it now. I think the average age, we've looked at the stats, like my YouTube channel, it's 45 and up. And we've asked our followers, where to get your news, and consistently it's people like you, and our, Minus and others who are getting it, and you're in it now too, Mark. Before I get away from it, Mark, I did remember something as I was looking at my notes. I don't think I knew that you actually, you were in the Army, you guys were sworn until 92 and 94, right? You started acting. It's weird. It's my mic. You started acting while you're still in the Army, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I did. I was in Berlin I was in Berlin when the wall came down, and at that time, a lot of the studios started opening up, and they were looking for American soldiers to be in this one movie, and I showed up on a film set and decided to kind of join the circus after that experience. But yeah, I was in Germany at the time. Very different time than we're looking at right now.
Yeah, a little bit more peaceful. End of the Cold War is, it's just never a dull moment. But yeah, it's a big transition. You did 25 years, and you've done a lot of really great shows, and you've been in LA that whole time. Before I forget, I always ask all my LA guests, like, how'd you do in the fires? Was it crazy? Were you involved in any of that down there? Did it touch you at all?
Yeah, I wasn't too far away from the Eden fires. I wasn't in a mandatory evacuation zone, but like myself and everybody on my street, we left anyway because the smoke came in pretty heavily. It smelled. Somebody said it smelled like burning electronics, and it's kind of like a burning tire for the most part. It definitely didn't smell healthy, so a lot of us left for a few days and then came back. But yeah, it's $250 billion worth of damage they're estimating. I think my state farm bill is going to go up by 25%. So,
well, at least you got insurance. That's
at least I have insurance so far.
You need a good lawyer. I know one on the show.
I played one on TV. I can do that.
It's not common. Not Aaron's also a lawyer in his day job.
Great.
And Aaron is not commonly known. On that. It's funny how a lot of folks see us, people like the three of us, on this stuff, on whatever we do, the things, and we have these backgrounds. You were like me. You were a former. I don't think a lot of people know you actually were in the Trump administration 1.0 for a while, weren't you? And you had a role in the Trump administration for a little while before you decided it was insane, didn't you?
You're talking about me, Fred?
Yeah, I'm talking about you, Aaron.
Yeah, I want to hear
little known secret.
I wasn't ever. Here's the thing: I wasn't ever officially in the administration as an employee or whatnot, but I did have some insights in the Trump administration in ways that the general public may not have. I mean, Rudy Giuliani was my brother's godfather. So
well, there you go.
Very interesting 4 years, but I think the big takeaway from all of that is that what I really saw is that Trump and his and those around him don't really care about his supporters, and especially young people. They kind of like viewed them as like useless lackeys in a way, and that's what they were saying behind the scenes while publicly kind of espousing this like confident messaging of how they're building this broad coalition. When behind the scenes they really couldn't care less. I mean, it was kind of like, if you remember back in the 90s, I believe, or the early 2000s, when Trump said that if he ever ran for president, he would run as a Republican because they're idiots, essentially. And that's kind of how they talk about them behind the scenes.
Yep. Well, it's an exciting time to be in Trump 2.0 land and the way we are. With that, great, JJ, my microphone works for the rest of the show. I don't know what's going on. If I disappear, folks, it's probably better to hear from me anyway. JJ, why don't you bring the panel picks? We can see what's going on. All right, so you guys are new, okay? And so I don't think I can explain this to you. The way this works, we have these panel picks. There's 4 of them. You may recognize they relate to you or not. I don't know, but we let guests pick one. We discuss it amongst us. They usually relate to both. Mark is the senior guy here. Why don't you pick first, my friend?
Wow, you got a few here up my alley here.
Exactly.
Let's go. I'm going to take odd career choices for $50, Phil. Yeah.
Odd career choices. I think you both have those in that one. Mark, like I said, Army officer to actor. Whoops. JJ did that. That was not me that time. All right, so you went from Army engineer, you went to Desert Storm, and then you fell into acting. Was that your plan? I mean, did you want to go into acting, or was that just a luck?
No. I wanted to be a management consultant and drive a Porsche and drive around Europe and be like James Bond in the private sector. That was kind of my plan. But I showed up on a film set and kind of saw how everybody was working so quickly and so efficiently, and there was it was a creative objective as well, and I was just really kind of taken up by it. But I'd have to say it wasn't necessarily my goal, but I was an extra, and they brought me in and had me try some, actual roles because somebody didn't show up, and they, the producer said, you've kind of got an affinity for this, and I think it was the first time somebody had really told me in a while. Somebody had, in the military, you're either doing it or you're not. But for somebody to say, hey, you're good at something besides blowing up bridges, it kind of struck me a little bit. So I thought, maybe I should try this. So I think I was more in line with kind of the Stoic philosophy of, pick something that you're good at as opposed to what your dream is, and then just sort of, ride that out and see where it goes. So that's how it happened for me.
I love it, and 25 years and going, still going. It's amazing. But Aaron, you set out to be a lawyer, and you're still a lawyer. How do you juggle those two things? I was gonna say,
barely a lawyer. I mean, at this point, it's kind of just like I'm 25 years old. I don't really sleep right now, so it's kind of.
That's the thing. Look, I do this too, okay? And JJ and I are old, and I'm constantly like, I don't know how Aaron does it, and I always bring you up, and JJ knows this. Do you sleep?
So here's the thing. My sleep is like the most important thing to me. So like my wife thinks I'm crazy, but I get my 8 to 9 hours no matter what. But then throughout the day, I'm constantly working. So like 24/7. I wake up 7 a.m. every morning, and all the way until I go to bed, it's just constant work, and it doesn't really stop. And I don't think I've had a day off really 2 years now, more or less. I mean, I went on my honeymoon and was still working. So it's just that's just become my life. And I mean, I love it. So when you love what you do, it doesn't really feel like work.
I suppose that's true, but as an old guy, I recommend you balance it at some point. I see Mark there rubbing his lips saying, "Oh, we've been there."
Oh, it's all coming back to me now. Yeah,
exactly. Anyway, I'm not saying I'm divorced for a reason, but I'm just saying.
I promised my wife that once we start having kids, I'm going to slow down. That's number one. And then number two, I mean, have you ever heard of that the dog racing phenomenon where the moment they stop racing, they literally die quickly because they no longer are doing the work. And the moment I feel like I stop doing the work that I'm doing, I'm just going to my life is just going to tail off. I don't know. So it's kind of
Yeah,
stuff like
no,
that.
I get, you have to have the right partner for that. I'm lucky with my partner. Heather is the Sunday show was her idea. And I said to her, I said, you realize that's Sunday mornings now, Saturday night scripting, and she's like, nah, you work all the time anyway. It's the same thing. You're scrolling in our business, especially, and in politics, it doesn't stop. Communications, it never stops. There's just never time. But these are odd career choices. All right, JJ, if capable, bring up the list. He did it. All right, Aaron, you're up.
Let's do the first one, the law and the law shows.
Yes. That's why it's number one, because I thought of it because both of you are lawyers in some way. I don't know if you play one. Mark, you played a lawyer a lot, okay?
Yeah.
And
I've done it
what's
quite
the
a bit.
difference, do you think? There's a difference in the law shows. And should we start with the lawyer first? Lawyer, what do you think? Is the difference in the shows and your actual life?
There's a big difference. I mean, the shows aren't real life, but it's funny actually. I'm really bad with names, and like Mark, I didn't really realize who you were until like a minute ago because I was watching Harry's Law over again on my because it's like making a resurgence right now on TikTok. Like all the short form, like they take these like accounts take these like 30-minute, 1-hour clips and just like splice them up into minute-long segments, and I was just scrolling and watching them. But setting that aside, the real life lawyering is nothing compared to the law shows in that like you don't have the aha sensational in court moments. If you do, it's like 1 out of 1 million. Most of real life lawyering is behind a desk doing paperwork 24/7. It's not really. I've been a lawyer for I guess 5 years. I've been in a courtroom like actually practicing as a lawyer like twice, 3 times. Like if you're not in a courtroom often, so it's very different.
Yeah.
I get the impression most of the like when you're a real lawyer is spending most of his time trying to avoid what's happening
Correct
on the law shows on TV.
Correct.
Personal drama, court, everything, right?
If you're in a courtroom, you're doing something wrong. That's kind
you
of.
guys drink as much as they do in Boston League. You guys drank a lot on all your shows, Mark. I think at work.
Oh yeah, they did that old up on the balcony drinking the scotch. Yeah, didn't they?
That was a thing on your shows as well. Yeah. What I love about the law shows is how quick it is. So for those, and thanks for some people have commented in the comments. If you guys heard, I was being sued by Mike Flynn, which is awesome. And he dropped the case Friday night at like 10 p.m. And Mark Zaid called me. He called me at like 10 o'clock. And if you're a parent, by the way, you don't answer the 10:30 phone calls are really, really bad. Nothing good happens on a 10:30 phone call. And actually, it was my lawyer, Mark Zaid, who was a guest a couple weeks ago, telling me that Mike Flynn had dropped the case. But my point is, that took almost 2 years, over a year and a half, to get to the point, and we never saw a courtroom once, right? Whereas, like on shows like Mark did, it's like a crime occurs or a civil suit, it's all solved within like a week. It feels like, doesn't it, Mark? I mean,
you would have been a great episode, Fred. You would have been a wonderful episode.
Cussing, you can really play it up. Flynn.
Yeah, I imagine your lawyer would have to keep turning back and be, Fred, just let me. I got this.
That's actually true. I actually had to get my tweets approved by my lawyer. He's like, you can make it worse. I'm like, oh, I can't. Like, don't repeat the things you're being sued for. Oh, that's a good point. Because there's a statute of limitations, and they
don't lawyers just tell. But don't lawyers? I mean, Aaron, you correct me if I'm wrong. Every lawyer I've talked to is just, their advice is just stay offline.
Correct.
At the end, I got to poke fun at his lawyers. That was fun. Banal Law Group, which I know Banal Law Group, Aaron. I'm sure you've heard of them. They are the law group of choice of the MAGA crowd, and so we started kind of poking fun at them because they were really late in all their filing. So I kept saying, I would send Jesse Banal like knock knock, hey, get tick tick tick, get your filing in, But here we are, free of that.
Banal, like the banality of evil. Is that?
Yes, it's spelled different, but it equals the same thing. I assure you, it is interchangeable. I mean, these guys. Well, I'll probably get sued by them too, but they are the ones. I am being very careful. That look, they're great Americans doing their jobs. That's all I'll say to that. That's all I've got to say about that. Bring up the list, JJ. Oh, come on, this is a layup. I mean, okay, Mark, you're up.
Time management.
Damn it. All right. Come on, man. All right. Time management. That's actually for I talked a little bit for Aaron a little bit. It does relate to you, Mark, coming back to the very beginning where you were trying to balance being an Army officer and an actor. But Aaron, you talked a little bit about your time management scheme right now too, of not sleeping. Mark, how did you manage time management of a career? Look, the Army is funny; they want you to run and stuff, and you were juggling 2 careers, and now you've got. I mean, you've been in a lot of shows. How does that? Like, I'd love to hear. You've been in seasons and seasons of shows. I mean, how intense is it while you're filming, and then is it dead? I mean, what is the timeline like when you're doing a show like, I don't know, Boston Legal?
You're kind of, your hours are more or less like, if you're a series regular, your hours are more or less an immigrant farm worker. I mean, you're not in the sun, you're not doing physical labor, but it's like 6 to 6. You know what I mean? You're probably 6 days a week. That's what you're looking at. And but the pay is much better, so nobody complains about it.
That's true.
But that said, I don't know. I think sometimes I end up I find myself putting like about 8 things on my schedule, and it almost goes back to like at West Point where we had like 20 credit hours in a semester where we had everything. Sometimes I kind of even revert to that, like work on things like an hour at a time. But how do you manage your time, Aaron? You've got a lot going on. Do you have AI giving you a schedule every morning, or I don't mean to, but I'm just kind of curious.
I'm curious myself. Like, I want to learn, by the way, because
I'm sorry. I'm not used to being a guest, so I'm sorry if I just revert to asking questions.
Do it.
The way I manage my time is really just go with the flow. Like, I wake up every morning, I have a to-do list. That to-do list never gets touched because you always, there's so many fires that happen throughout the day. So it's really just you take every minute, just take things as they come every minute. And what I like to do is when I shut off my phone, I have an hour a night where I'm not on my phone, I'm not on electronics, and completely disconnect from the world. And I think that's been so important for me. And then also just a lot of my content, some of it I pre-record, some of it as it's coming in super fast, I'll have my wife sometimes help me or whatnot. But ultimately it's I just don't stop. And it's sometimes it's bad, but it's kind of what I do, and I love it, so it doesn't really impact me.
Yeah, and I've noticed that. One of the reasons I put this on here was for you in the sense of I also noticed that working with you professionally for 3 or 4 years now, you take your faith very seriously. You block out your faith religiously. That was stupid, but you do. You're very strict about taking time for your faith and telling your clients and people you're doing that. Then I respect it a lot because that is as much as I teased you earlier about your crazy life. You do have, as a partner when working with you, I've seen that you do take your personal priorities very well. Mark.
Can I ask Aaron one more question? Sorry.
Look, this is the panel, man. We're all friends here. I want you to do that. Look, I'll just chill out. My mic's all fucked up anyway.
I got some questions for Aaron if you want to go get a cup of coffee for yourself. No, Aaron, I was looking you up before we started, but your father obviously. But I was wondering, it is, it might have been at a young age, but at what point did you sort of start to see some chinks in the Trump armor and start to kind of change your mind? Maybe it's a personal thing. You don't have to say it, but you did turn.
I did turn, and actually, it didn't really have anything to do with Trump specifically. It was one moment. It was right after law school, or the summer after law school in 2020, where we were in the height of the pandemic, and I was in Miami at the time. And a friend of mine was doing Teach for America, and she was teaching inner city students, and so she was come by my classroom and teach them about constitutional rights. These are kindergartners, first graders, essentially teach them what happens if a cop comes up to you. What do you say? So I walk in that classroom, and in that moment, in that hour, I quickly realized that a number of the kids were wearing clothes that haven't been washed for a few days. They don't have the same resources. And in that moment, I realized, hey, one party is willing to help these kids. The other is willing to keep them in the status quo. And in that moment, I quickly realized that I wasn't a Republican. I wasn't the part of MAGA, because MAGA would have left these kids behind. And ever since then, I've just kind of charted my own course. So it wasn't really a moment within Trump's world. He's done a number of things that I personally disagreed with back in 2018, 2019, whether it was the kids in cages, attack on the Affordable Care Act, whatever it is. But it wasn't really until I saw it firsthand in person that I made the switch.
It's funny because I was a Republican for many years. Obviously, I was Half of us were in the military, right, Mark? You know,
Yeah.
but it was just like because we were strong on defense. We joined under Reagan. Mark and I went into the Army under Ronald Reagan. Came to our graduation, or one of our, a couple of the graduations we had, and so that was what we were raised under. But it's funny what you say, because a lot of people say it was Trump, and I tell the story often of, when Trump attacked John McCain.
Mhm.
That was really a seminal moment for me. I was like, okay, this guy's dead to me, But it was the same way. For me, I was a business owner and a small business, and we were so small, we were so scotched together. I couldn't afford health insurance for my employees. We were too small. I wasn't required to have at that point. And one of my young employees, relatively young, in her 30s, had a congenital condition that caused her to need a hip replacement, of all things. And if it wasn't for Obamacare existing, there's no way she could have done it, and I gave her cash because that's all I could do. But for me, there was, and then I think we mentioned in the pre-show, you guys, we talked a little bit about how I have a daughter who's older, who's had a whole host of conditions, from endometriosis to others, and watching her struggles in the healthcare system. For me, the healthcare system kind of made me liberal, believe it, dealing with it just kind of, and then when Trump came along, that was sort of the final straw for me. But that's me. So yeah. Anyway, what about you, Mark? Have you been? Where have you fallen all these years? Have you just sort of? I mean, you live in Hollywood, man.
Yeah, I think part of it is just environment. I'm in favor of liberal democracy, but I think if it goes back a little bit farther, at West Point, I remember one of the coolest things we learned was like MacArthur in Korea, and it's like, the military doesn't get involved with politics. We are more of like a tool of foreign policy. We're not like a thinking organism, So I think that was my excuse for shutting off for quite a while. So I was like what do you call it, an NPC, like a non-player
Yeah.
character, probably.
Yeah. I did the same thing.
A long time. I think around when Clinton came around, and I came from a town up north. It's like a post-industrial town, and I think his attitude about getting people re-educated and sort of moving on and trying to make some progress instead of going back into the great years of manufacturing. I think that was something that attracted me at the time, and that going into the entertainment business, living in California and seeing the benefits of what this state does for people and how they take care of people. I probably just stayed solid.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense how you just seeing those things. Well, I didn't vote for long. Aaron, this is a funny thing. You probably when we were young officers, many officers didn't vote. There was sort of, and you remember this. I'm glad you brought it up, Mark. There was a culture within the military that it was it felt, and I was one of those guys. I felt it was inappropriate to vote for the commander in chief, like my boss. Like it was just, it was just, now it's kind of quaint, but that was really a thing. That was really a thing for many of us. We're apolitical. We never talked politics before. I couldn't imagine a scenario where I would talk politics. One of the most shocking things that happened in my young career was when I was a senior captain, actually, in Hawaii. And one of my bosses came to me trying to make me go to this. Was it the Oath? It wasn't Oath Keepers. It was Oath Takers. Right? Do you remember there was like a men's religious movement, Christian movement? You remember that? You remember? I think you may have just gotten out. You were out by then. But there's this thing where all these men were going to these rallies to be good Christians, and he was really pushing me hard to go. And I was shocked. I was like, we don't do that. We don't talk about a religion. You don't force your religion on me. We don't talk about politics. And it was one of the very first times I'd ever actually had a senior officer kind of push me. And now, the stories I'm hearing from young soldiers, it's very different. But we could go on forever. I know with the panel, we're getting close to the end. I know Mark's apparently going to avoid talking about Shatner, which is incredibly disappointing. I'm just going to ask directly, since you're avoiding it, what was it like working with Shatner? Again, talk about the reason I thought of that was exactly what Aaron brought up about your old clips. There's been a lot of clips floating around of Shatner on your show. Lately, there's that one floating around where he shoots the guy with the paint gun. I don't know, but what was it like? What was it like working with Shatner at that time?
Well, I'd have to say he is probably one of the most curious people that I've ever met. And able to have a conversation about anything, not necessarily because what he's. How informed he is, but he's just always been for me kind of an inspiration of what real intense curiosity about the world and people around you can lead to.
fascinating.
But we also got a little bit of a code. We don't talk about other actors. You know what I
I'm
mean?
breaking.
It's like
Get out of here, man. We don't do that. You can talk nice. You don't have to be a
you
jerk.
got too many. Fred, you got too many followers. You know, I'd probably
I
tell
do
you.
with all of my actors.
You
I'm
really
a dick.
do.
I don't follow your Hollywood code. I live in St. Louis. All right, here's the favorite part of the show where you plug where you're at. We'll go with you first, Aaron. Plug where people can find you and get to you. I know you got something going on, Mark. Go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah. Either my TikTok, which is Aaron Parnas 1, or I just launched my Substack. So it's just my Substack, the Parnas.
He has 1 million subscribers already. He launched it yesterday. You know, look, funny story. Aaron goes, "Hey, are you on Blue Sky yet?" So I think I joined a while ago, but I haven't really active. And I get on there. He's like, "Oh," he texts me. He's like, "Fred, wow, look at this. You're the one who sent me the list."
Yeah, I did.
This list it's like the top 500 accounts. And he's like, "Look at you're like at the top 70 or something like that." I'm like, I'm just getting there. And now if you go to the list, Aaron's like 12. It's like, son of a bitch, I can't keep up. Well, anyways, follow Aaron. And Mark, you're working on some stuff. We have a banner for it. But Mark, you got a project you got doing right now, don't you?
Yes, yeah. I've often volunteered for public health, like the Clinton Health Foundation and the LA County Department of Health. I was a contact tracer during COVID. One thing I'm doing now is trying to raise some money for the American Red Cross and walking 100 miles in February. I'm up to 77. And I left you a link of where you can donate.
It's on screen right now.
Pretty close to my goal. If anybody could choose to help, I mean, the response for the Red Cross has been tremendous here in Los Angeles. Over 9,000 beds and thousands and thousands of meals provided. And I think with FEMA under threat, you're going to see a lot of states probably trying to contract with American Red Cross as well. So it's going to be an organization that's going to probably need some help. And that's about it. And also on markvalley.com, you can find my other socials. Maybe I'll start a Substack, Aaron. You guys
do it.
Followers?
Oh, you're
Why
a
not?
writer. Yeah,
I think I will. I'm inspired. Yeah.
It's fun. I mean, honestly, joking aside, and we joke a lot on the panel, but I really enjoy a Substack. Right? We hit 10,000. By the way, thank you, subscribers. We hit 10,000 today on my Substack, which is incredible. It's a huge number of people want to hear me and my typos. I sent the one today. So I'm actually, my fiance is a English major, and I make her crazy because I can't write clearly. I typos and anyway. But yeah, you should join us, Mark. It's worth it. In the meantime, it's 100 miles in February for Red Cross. Find it. You're absolutely right. The Red Cross we need them more than ever as the turmoil around the Fed and the FEMA go. So just if you can't follow that, we'll put the link in the blurb too, Mark, so people can find you. In the meantime, gentlemen, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Sorry if I broke any of your rules. And good luck out there, and we will see you guys soon.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, Fred. Nice to meet you guys.
I love the panel. Hey, look, it's fine. I love the comments. I was watching the comments and somebody said, it's good to hear you laugh. Look, folks, one of the reasons we do the show, this format, is it's a really tough time. And there are very serious issues. We can go from the fall of our democracy and the Constitution and then still have laugh. I'll tell you why. And it goes to what Mark and I shared experience-wise. I'm going to tell you something. If you know a service member, if you know a soldier, or you've been to combat, the funniest freaking people on earth and the most dark, dire humor you'll ever meet in your life is service members in combat. And it's because there's sort of a black humor that goes to their business. When you're in the business and cops and firefighters the same way, it's like, it is what it is. And some of the funniest, the hardest laughs I've ever had have been when things were this scary and stuff. I can recall going back to Desert Storms, a story I've written, and I got to write it again, but we were in our first big combat operation. I was a scout helicopter. I had 2 Apaches behind me. We were sneaking at like feet off the ground. I'd spotted Iraqi tanks on the highway ahead of us, and I was moving in very carefully. And all of a sudden, I had explosions going off around my helicopter. I went to brake left. My left seat guy's like, no, they're over here. Brake right. No, they're there. And quietly over the radio, I hear my back Apache go, that was me, sorry. It turns out it just takes a little spark of static electricity in January or February where we were to set off the rockets on an Apache. I almost got shot down by an Apache. He insisted it was an accident, but you have to laugh. It was funny in the moment we landed. He gave me a big hug and apologized for almost shooting me down. So if we don't laugh now, if we don't maintain our sanity in every way we can, we are not going to survive this constitutional crisis and this fight. So keep coming back for at least a few laughs every week and and see how we can approach this. But in the meantime, we have another very serious conversation to have, though. So I'm really blessed. We've got Mayor Ras Baraka. If you know about, he runs Newark, New Jersey, and early in the Trump administration, you may have read reports like literally 2 days after the inauguration, there was a raid in Newark, New Jersey that actually scooped up an American veteran, and the ICE agents scoffed at him and didn't believe his IDs was real, and basically accused him of being a liar and a criminal. And he'd served his country and got disability the whole 9 yards. Mayor Baraka came out strong and talked about this. So I was really interested in getting him on. He found time for us yesterday to talk to us, actually. So this is actually pre-recorded from yesterday, but I'd love this is a great conversation. So let's bring on Mayor Ras Baraka. He has been the mayor of Newark, New Jersey for almost 11 years now. So let's talk to our guest. Mayor, man, welcome to the show. Really appreciate you taking time for us. I know I can't imagine how busy your schedule is. One, running a major city, but two, running for governor of your state. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess we'll just launch into, obviously the biggest thing in just the last few weeks. Trump took office. Your city got targeted like on the day after, basically. It was, you had an ICE raid. I believe it was a local fish market. Tell us about that. It kind of made a lot of news. I'm a veteran, so it caught my eye because I'm a veteran myself.
Yeah. Well, they're just feeling the atmosphere, the environment. They just feel like they can do what they want at this point. I mean, Trump is just basically giving all of these people the green light to do whatever it takes to, violate or push his political agenda. And so they just ran into a fish market without any warrant, no judicial warrant, no regular warrant, no any kind of warrant, and whipped past into the back of the store, which we know is not lawful. They weren't in the common area of the store. They went into the back of the fish market, arrested 3 people that were actually working there. So these people had jobs.
Not criminals.
Right. And, they, held up, I should say, a veteran, military veteran, who showed them his ID. They made mockery of it and basically told him that it wasn't real, so forth and so on, which is humiliating. And then some other people they held as well until they went through the whole process. One of the folks were Puerto Rican. So, I mean, they obviously don't know their, history or geography. So
yeah,
they held this person as well, and then finally let them go. What people don't know is they went back to that store and, tried to harass this guy around labor violations. They said somebody finally came out, said somebody called them and said that he had illegal workers working in his place, which could have been anybody, right?
Right.
Yeah, anybody could have done that. A disgruntled employee, an angry customer could have called and said that.
I've written about that because I served in Iraq, 3 tours in Iraq. And one of my jobs there was civil affairs. I dealt with the villagers and all. And we saw that under Saddam, right? Where if a village wanted the land of the next village over, or a business, a competitive business, they would just call up the security force, say, hey, these guys are terrorists or whatever it may be. And they'd raid. And I predicted this a year ago when we were talking about Project 2025 and these ideas. This is how like an authoritarian government works, right? If if you don't like your competitor, right, get rid of them easy by sending these idiots in there to just tear the place up and ruin their business. And that's a very scary thing. And this isn't your first rodeo with the Trump administration. As you mentioned, you've been in office 11 years. You dealt with these guys last time, I mean, I think you've had to deal with this outrageous overreach before, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think now it's just a little bit more intense.
Yeah.
They have become a lot more organized and intent on their objective, like laser-like focused on causing disruption. And that's what they're doing, like just scaring the hell out of everybody in the town. Folks who work in places, they're going to affect the economy. I don't know if these guys understand the relationship that this has to the economy, to productivity. I don't know if they understand that, but ultimately they just don't care. So people are scared to go to school. They're scared to be out in public. They're scared to shop. They're scared to work. So, yeah, it's having a serious impact on our community.
One of the big lies is leading all this. And I watched the debate. You guys have the governor's debate 2 weeks ago, and one of the big lies backing all this and they're propagandists because they have their whole propaganda tool network, right? Is that there's this immigrant crime wave, right? Holman's been saying, "Oh, we're going to go after the criminals. It's just the criminals." as immigrant crime wave, which is you and I, and you made it very eloquent clear. There's no freaking immigrant crime wave, and you took charge of Newark 11 years ago. It's a different Newark, but when you talk about crime, crime, and there is no immigrant crime wave, is there?
Absolutely not. I mean, I wanted to make that clear because we arguing in a context that's wrong from the beginning. The premise is flawed. And so we'll never win that argument if we're giving to them that there's some kind of immigrant crime wave, which doesn't exist. Are there immigrants that are committing crime? Sure. I mean, all communities have some level of crime, but there's no crime wave. And I said in the debate and other times, if we just solved for immigrant crime, if I just got rid of every other crime, had immigrant crime, we probably had the lowest crime we've ever had in the creation of the city. I mean, it's just real. I mean, yeah. For us to be moving on that premise is ridiculous in the first place.
You think they do that a lot, don't they, though, sir? I mean, they set up these false premises, right, and they cause us, especially as Democrats, to argue from that false premise, right? And it's a trap that many fall into. I mean, again, you've been doing this for a while. I mean, how do we get, frankly, to be candid, our own side, if you will, to stop taking the bait? I mean, it's interesting because, you're running for governor 4 years ago. There was a governor's race, in your state and in Virginia. And that was when the great CRT debate occurred, right? There's no fucking CRT. Or am I like, you know what I mean? It's, so do you see this the same way that the Republicans and the MAGA set this debate that's not a real debate, and we chase that, don't we?
Right. It's not a real debate. We're always on the defensive. Yeah. Whenever we're on the offensive, we don't push our strategy, what it is we believe. We don't relate democratic values to everyday people's lives. We make people believe that what they're going through is not what Democrats want, want to deal with, which is incomplete, which is false. So we have to make that relationship. And, we're arguing from their point of view, which means we'll never win the argument. So we're going back and forth trying to determine who's a criminal, who's not a criminal, this thing and that thing. It's ridiculous. The argument in itself is ridiculous. Just like the LGBTQ thing, this transgender kind of thing of people playing sports. I mean, you're talking about less than 1% of folks around the country who are engaged in this. I mean, it's ridiculous to have this argument. It's just a way of attacking a community, attacking transgender folks, attacking LGBT, attacking immigrants as a means to divert people away from what the real problems are.
Right. We're so busy fighting each other. They ride on top of the ashes. President Musk does what he wants and all. And I've seen. Obviously, you're progressive. You've always been. You wear your liberal. With pride. And now you're running for governor. And you haven't changed 1 ounce. You haven't changed. You haven't moved 1 degree to the center, have you? I mean, you wear that with pride, don't you? And that's.
Yeah. I mean, it's not me this far. So
there's that, right? You're the mayor. Exactly. And what's your advice for other politicians? I mean, and again, there are, I've been highlighting quite a bit. So there's 31 states having local elections. Obviously, there's 2 Supreme Court races in states, and of course, Virginia and New Jersey have governor races. You're participating in that. These are 2025 is an election year, and you say wear our badge with honor, right?
Right. I mean, you can't shrink in a crisis. People looking for leadership in difficult times. People are looking for leadership. They're not looking for people to run and hide. I mean, people are terrified. They're looking for hope. They're looking for opportunity, looking for leadership. They want somebody to stand up to these people. And this is what you're supposed to do, not bend the knee. I mean, this, again, the premise is wrong. This idea that there's a mandate for the ideas that Donald Trump is pushing is just false. It's just not true. I mean, look, in New Jersey, Trump, Kamala Harris lost by more votes than Biden did. So she won New Jersey by a very slim margin. So people are running for cover. But Trump got 3,000 additional votes this time than he did last time. That's it. 500,000 less people voted for Kamala than they did for Joe Biden. So that's really about the Democratic Party's, machine, its apparatus, its work. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump and their ideas. And so we have to understand that what these people are talking about, folks aren't buying into this stuff. I mean, they're concerned about everyday issues, and they're looking for leadership. Either we're going to lead or we're going to chase these people.
Yep. And leadership matters, even at the local level. Again, as kind of going back to what I said at the beginning, I can't tell you, I'm sure in the comments we'll see people saying, what can I do? What can we do at the local level? I've seen you traveling. I follow you on social media. I've seen you travel the state, going to, like I mentioned, Montclair's and other, mega counties. They're passing resolutions. You've been trying to buck them up, saying we can fight. Are you seeing that now? Is there a groundswell that people understand that at the local level, we can fight back, right?
Yeah, people want to fight. I mean,
Yeah.
they are disillusioned. There's a lot of hopelessness, like people paralyzed. The shock and awe thing is having some impact. And that's why I say now is the time for leadership. But they're absolutely looking for people to open their mouth, to do something different, to say something. People are waiting for the call. Let's say that,
Yeah.
They're waiting for somebody to say, meet me here at this time.
Yep.
This is what we're going to do. This is the strategy going forward. They're not looking for you to like run around and like make sure that they are okay, because they know they're not okay. Right. They want you to lead the charge.
And you've done that. I saw you participate in Reverend Al's Costco buy-in day. It's perfect. You've got major corporations in Newark. One of my clients is there, or former clients is there in Newark. Have you spoke? I mean, you backed up Costco when they said, no, we're not playing your damn games with the DEI initiatives, DEI being a bad word, these evil words they've created. And you did that yourself. Yeah, Reverend Al did that. A lot of people just said, hey, now, do you talk to corporate leaders? Are you having these conversations with the corporations in your town?
Absolutely.
Are they asking those questions?
Yeah, absolutely. The corporations in Newark are fairly decent.
Yeah.
They are around the table with us. I mean, I just spoke at Mercator and English's Black History Month celebration, discussing DEI, discussing supply chain diversity, discussing all these things that people are running away from.
Right.
Telling them they need to stand up on it. Like, now is the time. People don't need you to lead when everything is okay.
Right. That's the easy part, isn't it?
Right. They need you to step up when things seem to be falling apart and people are running away from what they know is right. Somebody has to hold on and rally the flag.
And this isn't new. I mean, let's be honest, sir. I'm a Midwest white guy, right? You've been leading your community for a long time. You grew up in Newark, went to Howard. The Black community's been in the fight. Reverend Al, we mentioned offhand, I've got a lot of friends who have been in the fight. I was in Richmond, Virginia, sir, for the BLM, situation. I walked, you couldn't have somebody stand out more than me in one of those. And it worked in Richmond. Lower Stoney got rid of all those goddamn statues, right? I mean, this isn't new to you and your community. You've been in the fight. And now it seems like this is a time for us to look to leaders like yourself, leaders like Reverend and others to look. It's funny how often I'll talk to one of my peers who's been in the civil rights fight and says, yeah, well, welcome. I made the mistake sort of saying when the Quakers sued, the Quakers were one of the first groups to sue the Trump administration. And I'm going to be very honest. I stupidly said on Blue Sky, like, well, welcome to the fight. And oh my God, a lot of my Black friends really, literally one call and said, you idiot. Quakers supported for as long as we can remember, they supported the Underground Railroad, right? They're not new. It's people like me that are new to it, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of people, and I just want to say, like across New Jersey, like and across this country, honestly, I just don't believe that, the majority of Americans are cynics, like are stuck in the past and are racist. I just don't believe that. I think that the history of this country has been the issues that we need to struggle against and make sure that the country becomes more democratic. Every inch that we have, and every moment of the day, we have to fight for a more perfect union, and that's exactly what we should be doing. And I think that most people want that. I mean, it is clear to me, and so we have to give it to them and organize people, across nationality, across zip code, across religion, across how people identify, and build a broad-based coalition. That's the only thing that has won in this country, and push this country further and further to be more democratic. When we build a broad-based coalition along those lines.
Yeah, we have to have the allies. We have to put aside the differences we've had, and you talk about that a lot in your campaign for governor. And as I only have a minute or two with you, I'd love to talk about your campaign for governor, but you talk about quite a bit that the divide isn't black, white, or it's sometimes it's a zip code, sometimes it's a few miles. One school succeeds, one school's failing a few miles away. It's inequality in a lot of ways. Is that the message you're taking in New Jersey as you run for governor? Is that our battle isn't between our skin color, our battle is between what's right, what's wrong, what's equal, and what's not equal, right?
Yeah, and equity is at the base of it. And at the end of the day, African Americans in this country have been discriminated against because of their nationality, race, their origin. Many people have.
Yeah.
The reality is, the inequity in the state and in this country is what's actually holding the country back. It's holding the economy back. It's holding our creativity, our innovation, all of those things is holding us back. It's holding our labor force back. It is, very, very difficult for us to move forward in this environment, especially in an environment that's becoming more and more people of color. Like 45% of the demographic in New Jersey identify as non-white, right? Soon, most New Jerseyans are going to identify as mixed race, which is what they do because people live next to each other. Their families are growing up together. They're marrying each other. They're doing all these things. So most of New Jersey will be identified as mixed race soon. So this whole argument about diversity, equity, inclusion becomes old, myopic, and frankly dumb. So it's important for us to begin to figure out a new way forward because these culture wars that not only Trump and them are pushing here in this country, they're going around the world speaking, trying to advocate this foolishness to the rest of the world. When the world is looking for the U.S. for some kind of leadership around this. And we're falling backwards as opposed to moving forward.
Well, I appreciate that, sir. I know I don't want to go all the time. Tell our viewers if they love supporting our candidates when they join us. Where can they find out more information about your racer and support your efforts, not just for governor, but for what you're doing to fight back against this ridiculousness?
Absolutely. Our website, rasforgovernor.com. You can go there, FOR, the word, rasforgovernor.com. You can go there, look at what we're doing. You can be a part of the campaign, donate, look at the videos, whatever it is. But also, if you follow us on our social media sites, follow me, you'll see clearly what we engaged in, what's going on, events that are happening, city events, as well as campaign events that you could be a part of to push back. I get letters from people all over the state of New Jersey asking us to do something now. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing something now.
Appreciate that. That was a great conversation. The mayor is a busy man. He is moving out, and it was a great I learned a lot. You could look at what he's doing. I was also fortunate to talk to Representative Mikey Sherrill on our show on the Midas Touch. Also fascinating. She's running for. So there's New Jersey got some choices here, and then the key that I want to remind you guys as you watch this is 2025 is an election year. Our friends at VoteVets, which we work with, also just gave their largest donation in history to Abigail Spanberger for governor of Virginia. This is a key time. That 2025 is our first chance to tell these guys where we stand and send a message that is not going to be acceptable. Thousands of local races, governor and lieutenant governor and attorney general for Virginia and New Jersey, state Supreme Court races in 2 states. There's a lot you can do and you can participate, and that's right now. And the last thing I want to tie the arguments. You heard a couple of times as we went through this conversation with our panel as well is leading. I think one of the themes I kind of watch our own show, as I do the show, I'm watching it, right? And I kept hearing that we need leadership. We need to lead. We need to stop following. We need to message and lead and change public opinion. We're spending way too much trying to follow what is the public opinion. There's way too many people right now as our Constitution is under attack doing this, putting their finger to the wind, trying to figure out where the wind's blowing. Let me tell you where the wind is blowing. The wind is blowing to our republic collapsing under the onslaught of an unelected billionaire and his spies and his deconstruction people, Trump, who's just an idiot, and then his incompetent hires run around. On top of that, the evil machinations of Stephen Miller and Russell Vought. Their goal is to dismantle our government. Don't buy the bullshit about it being about efficiency or saving money. They could fire every single federal employee. They could fire every single federal employee and still not cover the tax breaks they're giving themselves. Okay? That's a fact. So all this bullshit about how people are ripping them off or not, the math don't math. In that statement from the VA when they announced the 1,000 layoffs, they did some magical number that would save $1 billion, some bullshit. That's not how money works, okay? You're not saving billions of dollars a year by laying off 1,000 people who are all probationary employees making maybe $60K at most a year, okay? The math don't math because it's fake. And we as leaders, and I'm calling on Democratic electeds and others to stop putting your finger in the wind and start pointing in a direction. These are two different acts. This and this, okay? Point us in the direction we need to go. Nobody gave a shit about CRT 4 years ago, but the Republican propaganda machine kicked in. They got us scared, and that became a thing. Nobody actually voted about eggs. Stop talking about eggs. Nobody gives a shit. I hate to say this. The billionaire tax thing, tax break, I get it. The message doesn't work, okay? Stop talking about their billionaire tax scheme as the main talking point. The main point is that human beings are being hurt. Real lives are being damaged. People are going to lose their medical care. They're losing medical research they desperately need. Did you read the story about USAID workers who got abandoned overseas and are desperately trying to get out of dangerous countries like in Africa? We've probably got 5 or 6 Benghazis unfolding, and nobody's even reporting about it. We need to lead people to understand how monstrous this is. Instead of saying, well, a lot of people kind of like the immigration policy. I don't give a flying flip how much people like the immigration policy. It's based on lies. There is no immigrant crime wave. Okay? Just like the mayor said, there's no immigrant crime wave. They're doing that to fool you into buying this bullshit, and we need to stop. So that's my final note as I tie the whole show together this week, is that we need to point in the direction we want to go and stop sticking our fingers in the wind, hoping to figure out where it's going. So, as you say on the screen there, I have to put it in there. Please subscribe. We've got a couple, 3,000 of you watching live. Amazing. I'd love to double that next week. Tell your friends. Subscribe on our YouTube channel. We're putting up a lot of great little hot takes now and shorts. We've added a lot of content. We are teasing you now that there's a new show coming. We're so excited. In the next 2 weeks, we're launching a whole new show, a weekday show. You're going to love it. I can't tell you more yet, but it's going to be very cool. So look for the premiere of our new show coming out, live show. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. Going to have a few laughs and talk about fun issues, but we're actually going to talk about real issues. In the meantime, like I said, follow us right here on YouTube, set the subscriber, follow me on Blue Sky, FPWellman, follow the show on the Democracy channel, all those things. We really appreciate you guys being a part of this community. As I mentioned, the Substack, 10,000, y'all. You guys gave me 10,000 subscribers. It's free to join. You don't have to pay. I love if you would. A lot of folks have started paying to keep us going here, to pay for all these bills. But that's because of you. We do this because of you. So tell your friends, log on, come here next week and see us. The same bat channel, same bat time, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Sorry to our friends in California, especially JJ, who gets up at the crack of dawn and unscrews my mess. So thanks. We had minimal glitches this week, JJ. I'm pretty impressed. Not bad. We're getting there. I love so many familiar faces in the chat. Thank you for everything. Be sure to send us a message. In the meantime, it's up to us. All in our hands. Call your congressman. Call your senator. Find out. Call Indivisible. Call your ACLU. How can you fight back? This is how we do it. We get back into the fight. So thanks for everything you do. Let's stay in the fight. I will see you guys next week right here. Same place, same time.